folks, to your Inter Miami radio network. I am the voice of the Inter Miami Herons, Mike Rizzo, and Inter Miami is going to have a tough one coming up in South Florida this weekend. It's the New York Red Bulls, and joining me now is voice of the Red Bulls. I got Matthew Harmon with me on our Inter Miami radio network. Matt, how's everything going, partner? Are you looking forward to coming to sunny South Florida here coming up this weekend?
Listen, it's been a pretty brutal winter up here, and the spring has been a mixed bag in terms of weather. So looks like the weather forecast is going to be great down there. I'm looking forward. Always, anytime you get to see, listen, one of the best teams in Major League Soccer, the best player to perhaps ever play the game. And obviously, Mike can't wait to check out the new stadium. I think it sets up for a really fun game, and I'm sure it's going to be a great atmosphere.
Now, Matt, the Red Bull on the year, 3 wins, a draw, 2 losses. Last year, you know, the Red Bulls, I think, surprised a couple of people throughout the MLS. What can you tell me about the Red Bull this year, and what can Inter Miami fans expect to see from Red Bulls as we come up on Saturday?
Well, I mean, last year obviously was a huge disappointment for us. Didn't make the playoffs for the first time in a lifetime, basically. And now you're looking at a Red Bull team with a new coach, with Michael Bradley, bunch of new players. Very young roster overall. 3 teenagers have been in the starting lineup pretty much throughout. And I think right now the trick, Mike, for this Red Bull team is trying to find a little bit of consistency, right? You start off with a win on the road against Orlando. You get a win at home against New England. You kind of have a stinker against Montreal at home. You steal a point against Toronto, and then you get worked down in Charlotte before the break. The good thing for New York is that they came back last weekend, had a really strong performance, 4-2 over FC Cincinnati, you know, usually one of the better teams in the Eastern Conference and in MLS. So I think that might be what we see in the first half of the year as players kind of figure things out. And as a new coaching staff figures out the players a little bit more, there might be that yo-yo effect. I'm hoping that this week we can continue what we had last week against Cincinnati, but clearly it won't be easy against a really good Miami team.
Now, what does Coach Bradley bring to the squads, you know, comparatively last year, maybe that the coaching staff didn't? What's kind of changed for Red Bulls this year? As you know, it's been a pretty good start. You know, you mentioned last year with the kind of the disappointment and the surprise of not competing in the MLS playoffs. What has Coach Bradley brought this year that has really been surprising to maybe Red Bull fans?
Well, listen, I mean, I think the good thing for Michael is that he came in last year. He coached Red Bull too, so he got his feet kind of wet with the organization a little bit. And remember, going back to 2004, when the team was the Metro Stars, that was who he signed his first pro contract with, when his dad was involved with the coaching staff. And now, you know, it's a little bit of we're going young. We're going to play a lot of young guys. We do have some veterans. Obviously, Emil Forsberg, still one of the better guys in the league. Choupo-Moting had 17 goals in all competitions for us last year. So those veteran guys are there, but this is definitely a little bit of a restructuring in terms of roster and how the team is put together. Very young overall. You know, listen, I mentioned the teenagers. Everyone's been talking about Julian Hall and Andrew Bonetti. But even past that point, if you look at the starting lineup, you're talking about a Cade Cowell who's only 22, a Ronnie Donkor who's only 21. So overall, the team very young. Little thin right now, maybe across the back line. We lost Justin Che a couple weeks ago, which was unfortunate because he was playing really, really good in his return back to Major League Soccer. So what does Michael Bradley bring? I mean, listen, he's one of the most decorated players to ever play the sport in this country. So he has a knowledge of Major League Soccer. He's not too far removed from it. And in a lot of cases, Mike, he's coaching guys that were with him last year at Red Bull too. So I think that has helped this process a little bit more further along than even some would have predicted, despite a couple of bad games here and there.
Matthew Harmon, voice of the New York Red Bulls, is joining us now here on our Inter Miami radio network. You know, you bring up Julian Hall, 5 goals. You know, 5 goals already on this young season. Do you think he could consistently be a goal-scoring option for Red Bulls as you guys go throughout the season?
Well, let me answer it this way. He better be, right? Because he's been the guy that the team has counted on so far. He's been right place, right time in a lot of his goals. Actually, maybe kind of got gypped last week because we thought he had a second one. They changed it to an own goal because it deflected off of an opposing player from Cincinnati. before it went into the net. But listen, he's been sharp. He's got a ton of talent, a ton of ability, but consistency is really the word, right? Because if you think of the losses to Montreal, the loss to Charlotte, offensively in the final third, I would say we struggled. So that probably goes hand in hand with having so many young guys. How can they adjust to moments where things aren't going so well and things are a little bit tougher? I think we're still probably in that, hey, we need to figure this out kind of mentality a little bit.
And a big win against Cincinnati, too. I mean, Matt, that had to be a bigger win in recent memory for Red Bulls, no?
Yeah, great win. Great win, especially when you think, 2 weeks prior, and they had 2 weeks to kind of stew on it. We had been beaten by Charlotte in North Carolina 6-1, went down to 10 men, was not a good performance for us overall. So what kind of response? And I think that's going to be part of it. In moments where things aren't going well, how is a young roster going to respond with some of those veteran players that I talked about? Fortunately for New York, they were able to get 3 points at home against Cincinnati. Tough game, obviously, this weekend. They've got an Open Cup game coming up. So all of a sudden, the schedule is going to get crowded. And we always say this on our broadcast, and I know everybody does. Make sure you get your 3 points at home because it's never easy to grab points on the road.
Yep, and certainly in South Florida, too, one of the tougher places to play. But Matt, something I've noticed from being a part of the radio network for the last 2 years, teams give Inter Miami the best shot almost every single time they play them. I mean, you saw it against Austin last week. The Verde and Black, they showed up in a big way. Within the first 30 seconds, they went off the post. They had a goal in the 4th minute off of a corner kick. Are you expecting the Red Bulls to kind of come out and be on fire, similar to how Austin was in that opening game at New Stadium?
Expecting, I don't know about expecting. How about hoping, Mike? How's that work? I think it would be great if Red Bull is willing to, go out and challenge Miami and see if they can get them out of their comfort zone a little bit, much like Austin kind of did. And then can you dig in and figure a way, claw your way, make sure you get at least a point coming out of the game? The one thing that's a little bit of a concern, and listen, new coach, different roster makeup. The last couple of years, Miami has had our number, especially when the games have been down in Florida. Listen, when Messi came into the league, he played his first game in the regular season at our place, had a great performance. Last year, they kind of beat us up pretty good when we played down in Fort Lauderdale. So I think tactically, how we go about this game, that's going to be a little bit of the question mark, and won't know the answer to that until we line up on Saturday night.
Yep. And Matt, listen, appreciate all the time, partner. Looking forward to seeing you coming up at New Stadium, and thanks so much for all the time.
Mike, great stuff. Always happy to hop on and talk MLS. Look forward to do it again with you.
That was Matt. Folks, that was Matt. It was Matt Harmon from the New York Red Bull Radio Network. He's going to be calling the game coming up down here in South Florida on Saturday. Once again, that's Inter Miami hosting New York Red Bulls. Our Herons coming off of that loss, or rather, God, it felt like a loss, but that draw against Austin FC 2-2 at their brand new stadium. Now, when we come back, we're bringing in a special guest. We're going to have Keith Costigan from Apple TV.